This is a Confetti Land-bound subway train. The next stop is Stardust Speedway, followed by Candy Cane Lane. Please stand clear of the closing doors.
Greetings from Confetti Land,
home of the Confetti Bar. I'm Jessica, founder and confetti artist.
And I'm Alexis, head of happiness. Join us here in this magical, colorful place where we
have fun,
feel feelings,
and encourage you to embrace your unique version of happiness and all of its beautiful, messy pieces.
We are so excited to have you join us.
Okay, everybody. Today we are oh so honored to be sitting down to chat with the one and only Cyndie Spiegel. Cyndie is a storyteller turned writer, a speaker, a facilitator, an author, and a community builder who likes to ignite powerful conversations about self-exploration, hope, authenticity, and joy. Her newest book, Microjoys, came out earlier this year, which we can't wait to dive into later. But first, let's give a warm welcome. Thank you so much for visiting with us, Cyndie.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was very excited for us to get on. So no, this is my pleasure.
Well, we are so thankful you're here, and we can't wait to chat about all the things.
Yes, we do like to start off with talking about celebration. And so we like to ask our guests the same 3 questions and kind of get everybody's different answers. So first up is, what does confetti mean to you?
Joy and reemergence.
Yes.
Ooh, good one. We like it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What would you say would currently make up the confetti mix of your life?
Oh my goodness. Shoot. My husband, he's very cute. Our 2 cats, they're also very cute. I mean, one of them's a little bit evil, but that's not the point. Doing work that matters, close friendships, and putting the social into social media by connecting offline with folks that I've only met online.
That's a good mix.
Can I add more?
Sure can. It's your mix.
Can I add plants? I forgot plants. I forgot to add plants into my confetti mix.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, plants.
You have
plants and
pink.
pink.
Plants and pink.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean, lots of pink, lots of plants, cats, Ira, friendships, being social, many things in my confetti mix.
That's a fun one.
Yes. I love it. Some things that are in your confetti mix might be the answer to this as well, but what are 3 things that make you happy?
My husband. I really like Ira.
Good.
It's good. It's a good way to be.
My husband, the color pink, and the love of my family.
All great things. Okay. So before we actually dive into the specifics of your book, I want to just start very broad and have you just tell a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a 2-time author, as you said. I work in the space of personal leadership, and what that means is using our core values and our core beliefs to walk through the world in a way that is in alignment with our integrity. And I do that through keynote speaking. I do that through facilitation. For example, I'm headed to Sundance in 2 days to facilitate a retreat over the weekend. I do that by going into brands and businesses. And I also do that through my writing. So that is what I do in the world. And I've been doing this for, I guess, about 11 years, because prior to that, I had a whole other career. So we may or may not get into that, but that is what I do today. And I talk a lot about that, those topics in particular on social media.
Nice. Okay, let's get into this topic at hand. Can you explain to us what exactly microjoys are?
Yes, good question, because I think the title can be misleading. The foundation of Microjoys is having the ability to hold joy in one hand and grief in the other at the exact same time. And we do that through these moments of joy that exist regardless of our current circumstances. So moments of joy that exist regardless of our current circumstances. They do not have to be small, but they exist anyway. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure.
Yes.
But they are not small joys. They are not small joys. They are not only small joys.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And we'll definitely get more into the specifics, and we'll talk about the book in particular. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit, and I know you get into this in the book a little bit, but this idea of toxic positivity, right? And especially in our space, and, you know, we talk about joy and happiness and those kinds of things. There is sort of a trap of falling into this. Well, you just have to, like, everything always has to be good and happy and light and fun. And so I want to talk a little bit about how can we avoid falling into that trap, and sort of how do you relate that idea and make sure that we're not just talking about all of the good and fun things in life, but we're balancing it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So toxic positivity is really, you know, I call it the good vibes only culture, right? It just means that there's only space for good things. I don't want your bad energy. I don't want any negativity at all. I don't want to deal with your sadness or your grief. Like, just come to me when things are well. That is incredibly dangerous, because that is not how human beings work, right? We have a spectrum of life experiences, and they're not all good, and they're certainly not all good vibes. So I talk about that phrase a lot, because I think we've all at some point or another have used it, right? We've had it on our doormat, we've had it calligraphied on our wall, we've had a t-shirt that said it, or a notebook that says good vibes only. And when moving through the hardest things, what I realized was that toxic positivity really sort of created this layer where I couldn't just grieve, because on top of grieving, I felt badly for grieving, because that wasn't good vibes only, right? And so we have to be really mindful when talking about joy. And I think you know, we both understand this, talking about confetti, talking about joy. It's a slippery slope, because I think unless we are actively having conversations, making very clear that these things are not binary, the assumption is that we're only talking about pink, glittery, fun things all the time. And that's not the reality. The reality, and I think this is where microjoys, and also where confetti comes in this instance, is this idea that we are going to go through hard things. We are going to struggle. We are going to have those moments of fall to your knees reality. And when we are ready to get back up, there is confetti, there is pink, there are flowers, but it doesn't mean we need to live in that place all the time. And I think there's a beautiful balance to feeling all of it and to being all of it. You know, we're able to see the light and the beauty and the plants and the color and the fun, because we know what the opposite of that is. We know what it's like to sort of move through all of these different emotions. So I might have answered more than you asked, but you're welcome.
No, we love it. And that's something that I've always said, you know, my kind of whole purpose for starting this business really centered around that idea that life is not always sunshine and rainbows, but we can still choose to celebrate certain things, and we can still choose joy and be on that journey towards all the good things in life. But that doesn't mean that the bad or sad or hard things don't exist. And it has never been about, oh, let's just cover it in confetti and it makes everything better. It's about using it as that symbol to recognize that there is hope to hold on to. And, you know, there's this sort of other side of it. So I definitely, I'm picking up what you're putting down here.
Yes.
The symbolism. Yeah, the symbolism. And also, right, the hope and the possibility for what also exists, right? Even if you're not in it in that moment, it's like there is this coexistence of beauty and joy and things covered in glitter and confetti. Doesn't mean you have to actively be in that space right now, but there is this real sort of energy of hope. And I love that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. As humans, I think that we can kind of be forgetful, or at least I'll speak for myself, and say that I can get into a groove and I don't notice as much of the magic and wonder that is surrounding me. And so I want to remember, I want to wonder and be more childlike. So what are ways that you consciously seek out microjoys without falling into the trap of like mundane routine?
Mm. I think after writing a book, it is just sort of ingrained in me at this point. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can't not look for microjoys. But part of it is, I get up in the morning and the first thing I do is I play with my cats, right? And so what I'm getting at here is ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Creating these opportunities where you do certain things every single day that you can look forward to,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things that bring you joy. So when I wake up in the morning my office is in my home, I could make a cup of coffee and open the computer. But instead, what I do is I make that cup of coffee, I play with my cats, I sit on the floor with them. I know this all sounds very creepy, but I promise I'm very cool. Um, and so what that does though is it starts my day from a place of lightness and a place of joy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Other ways that we can do that are saying, how do I want to start my morning? And how do I want to end at the end of the day, right? Because what are those thoughts? What are those things that bring me some semblance of joy, knowing that the day is going to happen however it's going to happen? What can
Mm-hmm.
I do right now? What can I do every day that's going to start me off from a place of grace, from a place of possibility, and from a place of hope?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's journaling for some folks. Maybe it's just sitting down and having that cup of tea or coffee or warm water or whatever you're drinking and doing that in quiet. So I think for all of us, we get to decide what these things are that bring us joy, right? But we do have to commit to them at least a little bit, the ritual of accessing them,
Yeah.
and something I talk about when it comes to microjoys is I say, the daffodils are going to bloom anyway. And what I mean by that is regardless of what I'm going through, the daffodils are going to bloom anyway. My only role in any of this is to notice them. And so the foundation of microjoys, and really for all of us as we're tapping into this, is noticing.
Mm-hmm.
So paying attention to what is around us, whether it be in our homes as we're out for walks, and really noticing the nuance in our day to day. Because I think we get caught in what feels like this mundane routine when we do the same thing day in and day out. But when we actually slow down enough to notice, we start to notice differences,
Mm-hmm.
things that we maybe didn't notice yesterday. So pay attention is the long and short answer. Pay attention.
Yeah, there's definitely some intentionality behind it, it sounds like.
Okay. I think I want to get into the book. So there's just so many things that we are chatting about that I just can't not bring it up. So we're going to talk about, it's
Okay.
called Microjoys, Finding Hope, Especially When Life is Not Okay. So I know in the preface of the book you kind of talk about this, but take us through sort of how this book came about and why you felt compelled to write it and all kind of the backstory leading up to it.
Yeah. So, I'll go back a little further first to say in 2018, I wrote a book called The Year of Positive Thinking. And that book is obviously the premise of it, everything about it and me is optimistic. I've always been optimistic. I wrote a book about optimism, essentially. And 2 years after that book was published, 2020 happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were in a global pandemic. In May of 2020, when Black Lives Matter took the global stage and George Floyd was murdered, so too was my 32-year-old nephew walking to a friend's house. It was a random act of violence. 4 months after that, my beloved mother, Mama Shelley, who I write a lot about and I talk a lot about, passed away somewhat unexpectedly. Within a month of her passing, my brother had a stroke and then went into cardiac arrest and spent 10 weeks in the ICU, again, in the middle of a pandemic, so we couldn't even visit. So we had just buried my nephew, we had just buried my mom, and then we couldn't visit my brother in the hospital, who was completely unconscious. Like he didn't know what was happening. So we're also sort of preparing at that point to bury him as well. By the grace of God, we did not have to, because as I said, 10 weeks later, he finally came home. And we thought that we would be able to breathe at that point, and reassess what our family looked like, because we've always had a small family and, we had just lost a lot of that. Except a month after my brother came home, from the hospital, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And all of that happened in a 10-month span of time.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the midst of that, outside of the global pandemic, I had a friend for decades who simply fell away. I still haven't spoken to her to this day with no explanation. So it was loss after loss after loss. And it left me in this place where I no longer recognized myself in the mirror. The woman who wrote a book about positive thinking, the woman who was an eternal optimist, she just it didn't feel like she was me anymore. And so I went through this time of really allowing myself to be in the loss of it and be in the grief of it. I had never gone through anything like this in my lifetime, and God willing, I never will again. And I didn't know how to be. And I think it was in that time frame, I think after my nephew was killed, that I started posting on social media about these moments, these things that I would notice along the way, you know, and I talked a lot about my nephew. And again, these were prior to this, my private life was never really on display. It didn't have to be on display. And this was for the very first time, you know, where I really invited people into my family and what was happening. So there was this sort of collective grieving that was happening within my community. And so I would talk about these things that I would notice throughout my day, and I called them microjoys. And at the time, I didn't know that it would stick. I didn't know there would be a book. That wasn't where I was. It was simply acknowledging that multiple truths existed, you know, that the daffodils were blooming and my nephew was still gone. And in that acknowledgement, a community formed around that. And so it was probably maybe, 2021, when somebody from a publishing house who follows me on social media reached out and said, I know you're in the middle of a lot of things. I'd love to talk to you about an idea if you're open to it. And she was actually the one who mentioned the book. I was still too in it. And I'm so grateful that she did. It's not even the publisher I ended up going with, but I'm so grateful that she did. And I think that that's what happens sometimes when we allow ourselves to share our loss and our grief too. And to allow other people into that. You know, we create this sort of, first of all, it's a little bit, it takes the weight off of us, the heaviness off of us, and invites other people to carry that with you. And I think even the idea of the book was a real representation of that and of that happening.
So I love
and that's
that,
what led to Microjoys.
The book kind of found you. It wasn't, you know, you sought out to write this book. It sort of found you in the midst of all this. And I personally relate in some ways, because that's kind of how the Confetti Bar itself started. You know, I'm not private about it. I don't, you know, display it. I have, you know, posts about it. And for the people who really follow the Confetti Bar, they kind of know the story. But, you know, when I was around 18, both my grandparents were diagnosed with cancer, and they were like second parents to us. They raised us. We never had, you know, babysitters or anything. So they were both diagnosed with cancer. They passed away 6 months apart. And then a year later, my dad unexpectedly was killed in a motorcycle accident. And it was, you know, right was I was in college and all that kind of stuff. And in the moment, you know, and just like you described, you know, you're so in it, and you're just trying to, like, you know, figure out, you know, who you are and where you are. And it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years later for me, but that's when kind of the Confetti Bar started. And it really was that you talked a little bit about hope, and it really was that sort of like, you know, there, after all like these bad things, there has to be good in this world, right? You know, we have to be able to look for it, and it's still there. And how do we do that? And, I think that it's so important. That's why I always say, for me, it's never been about, you know, confetti as a way to pretend bad things don't exist or anything. It was my way of, you know, looking for that hope, and how do I share that with others and create a community around that. And so, you know, as I was reading your book, it like really resonated with me in that way. And I would love for you to speak a little bit more on that idea of hope. And, you know, for me, it's always been the thing I always say, like, there is hope in happiness kind of thing. And you know, as bad as things can get, and trust me, like, I'm not trying to cover up the fact that they get really bad, but, you know, there has to be something, right? And for me, it always was hope. And I can remember even in college, I had to write a paper, you know, going through all of this. And it was, I can't even remember the specific topic, but I just remember writing, like, I have to hold on to hope, because what else is there? Like, if we give up hope, like, then where do you go? So I'd love to hear from your perspective a little bit more about that, and how you want to give others hope and kind of spread that even when you're going through your own, you know, really hard time. It's, you know, let alone give it to yourself, but how then do, you know, you create a community and give it to others?
Well, you know, I think first we have to acknowledge that sometimes there are moments when we can't have hope, when we just don't have hope. You know, when I was in the midst of all of it, I don't know that I would have felt, or described anything that I was going through as hopeful. It was the darkest it had ever been. What I will say about hope is that there's always opportunity for it to come. And sometimes we have to sit in the sadness and we have to sit in the difficulty. That doesn't mean that we don't believe in hope. It means that we're simply moving through the emotions that are real and true for us. And my hope with Microjoys is really that folks can tangibly see and understand that both things are true. You know, I talk in the book about how joy is not a binary, right? Life is not a binary. Things are not good or bad or black or white or rich or poor. Sometimes it's all of it. And in really starting to dissect that in the book, I think there's hope that springs from that. There's hope in saying that where there is darkness, or when there is darkness, there is also light. And I think it's only through this perspective. And at this point, I call Microjoys a mindset. You know, it's this real understanding that at the end of the day, we will be okay. Okay doesn't mean who we were yesterday. Okay doesn't mean who I was at the start of 2020. Okay often means changed, right? It means different. It means flipped upside down. It means life is topsy-turvy. But it means that we're still here. And sometimes that's all that we can grasp for. You know, that's it. When I talk about Microjoys, you know, the reason they were called micro is not because they're tiny, but they're easily accessible, right? Sometimes it's sort of like at the core of all of it, there is always hope. And there are moments of darkness. And in those moments of darkness, we have to give ourselves the grace to simply be. And we do not have to look for hope in those moments. But when we are ready to get up, whatever that looks like for you, we can remind ourselves that we will be okay, that life will move on. And sometimes moving on simply means putting one foot in front of the other, and eventually hope will come. But I don't want to discount the importance of simply feeling the hard stuff too, because I don't want anyone to feel like in the weight of all of that, they also have to look for hope. Hope comes from us. Hope is something that is internal for many of us. And it's still something that, you know, it's a practice. It's a practice like anything. So if we start practicing Microjoys, these mindsets of gratitude, feeling hopeful, we want to start those practices before we need those practices, right? Because when you're in the midst of it, now that's not always the best time to then hold yourself to looking for those things too. Sometimes you need to just be in it. But when you've built a practice of hope, you know, of gratitude, of joy, of wonder, when you've been building that, it will be there to catch you when you're ready for it.
Yeah, that's really good. I just want to say that I'm so very inspired by both of y'all, and how truly in the most difficult moments of your lives, you've still looked for hope and for joys. And that's just super inspiring to me, for sure. And I would love if we could maybe say a few of our own microjoys that we've intentionally paid attention to since reading the book, because I know that I have definitely been trained a little bit more to look for those things. So maybe Jessica, if you want to share some, and then Cyndie, and then I'll go.
Yes, so
Sure.
I've definitely been trying to hone my practice since reading the book, and I literally have a little note in my phone, and when I try to really recognize them. So here are a couple that I've written down recently. This one is silly, but it was the sound my shampoo bottle made when I was trying to squeeze out like the last little bit, and I felt like a 3-year-old, but it was very hysterical to me as I was laughing by myself in the shower. The feeling, like when my daughter like snuggles on my chest, and just that like moment of peace that I cannot get anywhere else is just, I can't even describe it. I love taking an extremely hot shower, like literally like a degree below skin melting. It just somehow feels very like healing and like renewing. I don't know why. but that makes me very joyful. Listening to sad songs is actually one of my microjoys, and it is actually something that makes me feel better by listening to sad songs. Whether I am sad or not, for some reason, it just like really puts me in my feels and is very important to like my own personal like healing process. The bright and colorful lights that are on my keyboard, because they're just very fun, and as I type things, it just makes it feel much more magical.
You have a very happy keyboard.
And then my last one that I have is just the way that sunlight hits and reflects like on anything sparkly. So Alexis and I have talked about this a lot, but I have disco balls all over my house, and like sparkly curtains or fabric. I have these like little window clings that are like faux stained glass, and like anything where like the light can hit it and like reflect, and just all of a sudden when you walk into that room, it just like lights up with all of this magic. It literally like takes my breath away every time. So those are just a couple of mine from recently.
Oh, I love those. Thank you for sharing those. I love them. And they're so varied, right? They're different for every one of us. So thank you. So do you want to hear mine?
Yes.
Is that what's happening now, Alexis?
Yes.
Okay. So in my meditation today, I could see the light coming through my windows. Even if your eyes are closed, you can still see light.
Yeah.
And I remember this moment where I was in the midst of a mantra, whatever my mantra is. And I just remember the light coming in. And I didn't have to open my eyes because I knew that it was there. And it was this beautiful moment of recognition, of saying yes. Like it almost felt like an affirmation of what I was saying. So that was a micro joy. Also, having lunch outside today, I was in the midst of a lot of things, and I said, it's fall. I'm in New Jersey. I'm on the East Coast, so it's fall. It is officially fall. I think it was in the 50s today.
Yeah.
And there are leaves all over the ground, but I thought I should go out. And by the way, I don't love cold weather, but I went out and I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get lunch. I went to get lunch, and instead of getting my lunch and bringing it back home, they have these tables, these kind of haphazard tables outside. I sat at the table, and exactly where I was sitting, I felt like the sun was just beaming down. And so I sat out there for about a half an hour, and it was so reinvigorating so that I could come back home after having my lunch outside and then be able to begin again. So that was another micro joy. There was also a moment today where it became very clear to me that I think what I said to myself was, wow, I get to do this. As I'm working on all of these different talks and this content that I'm delivering over the next few weeks and keynotes and things, it was this moment of clarity where I thought, wow, I get to do this. How cool is that? Right? Not I have to do this, but I get to do this. And that was a micro joy. Recognizing it, because I think so many times we get to do things, but instead we feel beholden to them and we forget that there's a choice. And then another micro joy, and I'll leave it at this one because I can go on all day about them, is texting cat memes with Ira. Now, again, I know I talk about Ira and I talk about my cats a lot. I think I have other things going on. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't. But literally just texting stupid memes with no copy. Just kind of like figure it out. Here's a meme, figure it out. So those were just some of my recent micro joys.
I love it. And I love how your theme today was like the sunlight and just like the warmth, and all of that was a theme for you today.
And I never pulled that together, but you're right.
Yes. That's good.
How about you?
All right. Some of mine, it is fall. So Magnolia's Gathered candle, so good. And it's not like super sweet. Like, some can be like very, I don't know, not great. But this fall candle, so good. It's called Gathered. Love it.
Not sponsored.
Yeah, right.
Not sponsored, but should be.
Should be. Walks, dinners, and phone calls with dear friends near and far have been super sweet recently. Writing with colorful pens on a new pad of sticky notes. Love that.
Oh,
Organizing and decorating a welcoming space has been work, but fun, and just finding some joy in that. I love lamplight, and I feel like recently garage doors have been a thing in my life. Obviously, you can see one behind me right now.
tell us more.
But those are bringing me joy too. Where I work and where I live, they're there. Mm-hmm. But
we're gonna have to dissect that one.
Right?
Doors are just opening for you, Alexis. Big, wide open doors.
Maybe that's what it is.
There's something in there.
And it like brings the outside in. And I don't know, just something about it.
What beautiful microjoys, my goodness.
We're gonna
Candles
have to
and light.
We're gonna have to continue our list, and we'll check in with you every once in a while and make sure that we are officially honing that practice, because I know please. I am guilty of letting life get in the way of the simple moments and just taking that minute to slow down and need to make an effort.
Can I just add something there?
Yes.
Something that I recommend to folks when it comes to building a practice of microjoys is to create a microjoys list in your notes app in your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So whenever you start to notice things, just list them in your phone, because the magic really happens when you're having a difficult time and you sit down and you open the notes app in your phone and you're like, oh, I remember that. Oh, yeah, because it instantly brings you back to that moment. So for anyone who feels like they want to pursue this mindset of microjoys, please create a list. And it can be a handwritten version in your journal, or it can be in your notes app. But write down these things as they come to you.
Yes, take note
hot
for
tips.
Sure.
Hot tips. I know.
Hot tips.
And I'm definitely someone who's 100% guilty of like not remembering unless I write it down for some reason. It's just out of my mind. But then when I see it, it's like, oh yeah. Okay.
Because life happens, right? Like it's just life happens, and we forget these things. We forget them very quickly. So when we write them down, we're accountable to them.
Yes. Really. Okay. I want to dive a little bit more specifically into the book itself. I know we've kind of, have danced around some of these topics, but I want to kind of bring us back to dive a little deeper into some of them. So if you will indulge me, I just want to read 2 short passages from the introduction, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Okay, but here we go. So, microjoys teach us to hone our ability to live within the gray, neither perfect nor imperfect, and still find beauty there, regardless of what may be happening outside of ourselves and outside of our immediate control. We perceive so much of the world in extremes and often opposites, good or bad, rich or poor, right or wrong, happiness or sadness, either or, but rarely do we perceive things as both, all of it, this and that. Nonetheless, that exact place of this and thatness is where microjoys reside. Inside the wide gray area, somewhere between the vastness of black and white, the place of accepting and holding both this and that as truth, like deep grief and intermittent moments of pure joy simultaneously. Those occasional moments of lightness amidst darkness are profound gifts that allow us the time that we need to come back to ourselves, and those gifts are the deepest expression of microjoys. Okay, that's one. And then to go along to follow up, during our lifetime, we will encounter the full spectrum of experiences, the beautiful, the not so beautiful, and sometimes the tragic too. There will be moments that unmoor us from ourselves, but alternatively, moments that propel us higher than we ever knew possible with gratitude and happiness. All of it impacts who we become and how we move through the world around us. Though this book is about the radical nature of discerning microjoys, my hope is that these stories also serve as a reminder that being present for all of life's moments offers us the opportunity to alchemize our experiences, the good, the mediocre, and the tragic, into a life that is still profound, beautiful, and deeply worthwhile. So I feel like, our thing, I know it's a lot. I mean, look at the breath. So our thing here in Confetti Land is really about both making and embracing beautiful messes. And so we really want to convey to people this idea of that duality. Like, yes, confetti can be messy, but it's also really beautiful. And that's just like life. And, that's really kind of what we like to anchor to here. And I know you talk a lot about this in the book, the concept of but and I think, we've already heard you kind of use that. So I want to hear from you about this idea of the all of it and the but and kind of explain to us how you hold the space for both things at the same time while still kind of growing and moving forward and still, trying to design that life that does make you happy and fulfilled while still accepting kind of all the hard stuff that can come along with it.
Yeah. But and is something I say a lot, or I just say and a lot, acknowledging things individually. I think as we get used to accepting multiple truths, it creates a certain fluidity that we're able to move through the world with when we don't need to see the world in good or bad, and we don't need to view people as good or bad. So when I say and, but, or and, I simply mean that multiple things can be true at the same time. And if you look at our politics today, multiple things can be true, right? Human beings deserve to be treated with dignity, and our politics are garbage. Like, both of those things are true. They don't discount one another, and I'm not going to get into that, but they don't discount one another. And the reason that I bring up politics is because we're so divisive right now, more so in the last decade than I ever have seen in my lifetime, at least. And I think that it stems from us not being able to hold multiple truths, and from not being able to allow other people to have their own beliefs, and feeling like it's it essentially becomes us or nothing, right? What I believe or nothing.
Right.
And there's no nuance in that, right? And so this idea of and is asking that when we are in situations that are unclear or confusing or conflicting in any way, that we simply insert the word and. Okay? So this shouldn't be happening, and neither should that. Not this shouldn't be happening, full stop, that's it, there's no more. Right? It's really requiring that we consider all of the possibilities for what is true in any particular situation, especially when those situations are not black and white, and most things are not. And especially when people are not black and white. I mean, in my case, I am actually black and white, but I mean, actually clear cut,
Right.
We need to leave space for that nuance. And that is something that is so important to everything that I do. And it's incredibly important to live a life inspired by microjoys, because it asks that we are able to hold multiple truths at one time, like grief and joy.
Yes, that resonates so much. And I think it's something that, we've been very conscious to talk about here, in our own context, is this idea that it doesn't have to be one or the other. And Alexis and I kind of talk about this a little bit in kind of our first episode. But one thing that I've sort of observed over the years, it's been 10 years of making confetti. And, it's amazing to me how people take a very hard stance one way or the other. They either love it or hate it. Like, they make it about, it either is good or it is bad. It is beautiful or it's messy. Like, it can't be both things. Yet I find that the people who are most resistant to it, once they kind of, if they're willing to kind of give it that one little chance and kind of let me have my spiel and, they'll give it a chance, like, they're the ones who wholeheartedly, like, if they're in like a confetti photo booth, will just like wild abandon, like, will just like so much embrace it. And I just feel like it's such a metaphor for life and like how we show up in life. And when we are so rigid and we think things have to be, this or that one way or the other, like, it doesn't leave room for growth. It doesn't leave room to experience different things and to really get at the heart of what you want in your life. If you're just always sort of like, nope, this is the way it is. And, that's all it is. So and I would love your thoughts. And I know you kind of mentioned this a little bit in the beginning about kind of the role that social media plays in that these days. And, I'm someone who definitely, I have a very much an and moment with social media. I think it is, very valuable, and it is also very toxic. And I think, the idea, and you had mentioned this beginning of kind of using like online media to form offline connections, and sort of the importance to kind of move beyond the ability to sit behind a screen and to feel very one-sided. And it's amazing to me that we're kind of in this place where we kind of have access to the most information we've ever had, but in some ways that it has made us even more like, nope, it's either this or that. So I'd love to have you expand a little bit more about the idea of social media and how that plays into this culture that we currently have surrounding, this or that.
Social media has many beautiful things, right? There's many beautiful components. This happened because of social media years ago. But we, at the end of the day, are the people that control it. I don't mean control the algorithms. I mean control what we take in and what we put out, right? And so we have to hold ourselves accountable to what we receive and what we put out, right? And I think sometimes we stop at the what we put out. I'm not going to post anything negative, but that's not enough, right? We have to also be mindful of what it is that we are reading, what perspectives we're paying attention to, what perspectives we're ignoring. We have to be very conscientious when using social media to widen our own perspective, right? It's so easy to live in a silo on social media. I mean, that's how algorithms work, right? If you believe this, I'm going to feed you more of it. And then we think we all, like, everything we know is correct. So we have to be careful, and we have to take responsibility for what we are taking in on social media, not just what we are putting out. So for example, I have a hard rule for social media. If it doesn't teach me something, if it doesn't expand my mind or make me feel good, I'm not going to follow you. Even if you're a friend, teach me something, expand my mind, or make me feel good. That's the only reason we need to be here, right? Like I'm learning about what's happening in other countries. That's teaching me something, right? That's expanding my mind. What I'm not going to do is be here for people's gossip. I'm not interested in it. Because again, it's like, that's where I think there's a real lack of people taking accountability for themselves on social media. And when I say people, I mean adults. It's like we have to be very, very mindful of that, because there's a lot of beauty to be found in social media. There really is, when used responsibly. It's kind of like cigarettes, right? There should be a warning label, like use responsibly, because it's so easy to fall into silos, right? Where you're simply hearing yourself over and over again. But there is a lot of beauty and missed opportunities for magic and learning other people's perspectives.
Yes.
And we lose that by assuming that what we know is the only truth.
Right. Yeah. One of our confetti commandments is to please party responsibly, but we use that as both like the practical, like, okay, use biodegradable confetti outside, all that kind of stuff, but also the kind of more symbolic, like just exactly what you're saying, being responsible for kind of what you both create and consume, and sort of how you kind of regulate your own self, but also be aware that, there is a bigger world out there, and not to just get too caught up in it.
And I would just like to add, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it.
Amen.
That's a good one. Just
like
be nice.
In life,
just
save
nice.
that for your friendships offline with the people that know you. Like, I'm not saying sometimes you can't get petty or gossipy, because listen, sometimes we do. But maybe don't go on the internet and do that. Like, just don't. Confetti responsibly. Yes. I'm just going to start saying that instead of instead of everything else. Just confetti responsibly.
Well, that's it. We talk about, we talked about, the toxic positivity and like, good vibes only. Like, we've always said confetti vibes only, but that's always been more about like for really understanding like what we're trying to do here with confetti, which is, everything we're talking about here today. So, we'll use that confetti responsibly.
It's all in the nuance. It's all in the nuance.
Yes. I think that the format of your book was so neat. Reading your stories kind of in essay form was really cool. And I think one that resonated both with Jessica and I a lot is the So Many Feelings essay.
Oh, sure.
We are feelings feelers
feelings.
here.
Yes. We have the shirts to prove it.
Yes, we do. I should have worn mine for this episode. But yeah, I overall am very grateful that I can feel all the feelings. Even though sometimes it can be overwhelming, even though sometimes I joke that I'm just like a one walking reaction. It could be good, could be not so good. But I would love for you to talk more about kind of your feelings and how also you talk about how your feelings can be contagious, especially joy.
Mm-hmm. Where is that? You know where that essay
Page
is?
201.
Now I'm like, where is it?
Page
I want
201.
201. Thank you. I need to just see it because I just need to be refreshed.
Yes.
One moment, please, and I will come back to that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. A lot of feelings. Sorry, Alexis, what was the question about all the feelings? Is it a problem?
No, just talk about kind of your feelings and how they can be contagious too.
Yeah, as you said before, I've got a lot of feelings. You have a lot of feelings. I think a lot of us have a lot of feelings, but we just sort of squash them down to fit into this weird mold.
Yeah.
The thing about our feelings is that when shared, they can be quite contagious in a good way. And they also help, I talked a little bit ago about how when I started to open up about my nephew's death and my grief, how it was an invitation to my community to help me to carry the burden that I was carrying. And when we share, when we first allow ourselves to feel them, and then when we're ready, invite others in, it creates this sense of we're not in it alone. And that works in many ways. And in that particular instance, right, it allowed me to have a community help me carry what I couldn't bear the weight of at that time alone. But also these beautiful feelings like joy and wonder and awe, not everyone feels them the same way. And I've learned that because I've gotten these looks from people, or somebody said to me the other day, Cyndie, you are so shiny. And what they meant by that was just, I notice these things around me, I talk about the things around me. And what happens is that when we are open with our joy and our awe and our interest in the world, other folks come along for that as well. And then they start to notice the awe and the beauty and the confetti in the world, And again, I say this as a feeler, not everyone is that way. In fact, a lot of people aren't. And so to me, it becomes this open invitation to share that with others in a very similar spirit to the idea of confetti, right? It's like, well, what is that? Is that a cat?
That is my cat.
Is that a cat? We're going to pretend we don't hear that? Okay. We're going to pretend we don't hear cat. I love the cat. Gonna just pretend that's not happening in the background.
Curious wanted to be on this episode.
He's very upset right now.
Feel free to let the cat in. But I think that feelings, one way or the other, they sort of, they have an energy of their own, and the people around us start to experience them too. So, right, sometimes that means when I'm going through stuff, I need to not be around people because I don't want to be leaking my stuff all over them. But when I'm in the middle of this place of awe and wonder, I want to be around people and I want to share that with people. And I have never had anybody who say to me like, wow, Cyndie, I hated your happiness that day. I hated your joy that day.
Valid.
No, because it's fun and light and it adds a lightness to the people around them. So spread it around. Spread it around. All the feelings.
Yes.
Well, not some.
Well, that kind of brings me, another one that resonated with me in the essay on gifting happiness as a love language gift giver myself, where you said that the interconnectedness of joy is palpable. So why not spread it around like colorful confetti? I took note of that, but I think, it's again, everything you're saying about, sharing in joy and happiness, in my mind is never a bad idea. And again, it's not to pretend that that's the only way to be, but it is, kind of self-perpetuating. And I find even, for my own self, being a feelings feeler, it is easy to get caught up in negative feelings sometimes. And especially then, you go on social media or whatever it is, and then you can just kind of get in this downward spiral. So, yes, sometimes I need to sit in it. I need to have a day. I need to go have a good cry. I need to listen to my sad songs. Whatever it is, huddle up under a blanket and just, pretend the outside world doesn't exist for a little bit. But then it is, not pretending that is not a part of my life, but choosing to share the joyful parts. And when I'm back in that joyful kind of mode, like that's what I want to share with the world. So it's never about, hiding the fact that there are these kind of negative feelings, or quote unquote negative feelings, that, they're all feelings, they're all valid.
Right.
But it's again, coming back to hope and, sharing the idea that, as you said, like it will be okay. And, we just sort of have to move through it and, accept every season of life and everything we go through on this journey. But it comes back to, at the end of it, what is it that we want within our communities? And to me, it is about that joy and spreading it. So I'm a big fan.
What I would add to that is, as we talk about social media and joy, and we don't have to share everything.
Exactly.
There is no rule that says if you talk about confetti, you need to balance it out with sad things. That's not a rule, right? So we get to decide, and this is that accountability. This is the confetti, what is it? Confetti responsibly, right? Decide, allow it to be a conscious choice, what you share, right? And you don't have to share all parts of it. You get to decide. And I think that that's incredibly responsible of you. And there's the and again, it doesn't mean that you're putting your head in the sand, right? It's a responsible way of you communicating because you are clear that you are going through something that you don't want to share.
Yes.
So it's and. Those are both, those things are both true.
Yep. And it's so easy to feel, especially when, you have a business or a brand or something and you kind of feel like you always have to be on, or, I have to share every little detail. And I've always been very conscious of that for myself, just because I know how I am being a feelings feeler and I absorb a lot of other people's feelings. So it's like, I need to have a little bit of distance and a little bit of I need things that are just for me because, at the end of the day, yes, I love connecting with people. I love having people in my life, but, I have my own stuff to work through and I have to make sure that, at my core, I'm doing well. Otherwise, how can I expect to, give anything to anybody? So yes, I would definitely say regulating and, it's your platform to decide what it is that you want to share. But to your point earlier, making sure, and this is something I always sort of think about, thinking about is what I'm sharing, helpful or real, or, is it giving something, back to the world, or is it, just something that I feel like I have to do? And if it's something I feel like I have to do, that's a sign to step back and okay, maybe that's not something that I should be sharing right now. So yeah, 100%. Yeah. See, we have to all the things responsibly. Confetti, social media,
all the things responsibly.
Live responsibly.
Yes. Yes.
Indeed, live responsibly and regulate ourselves as needed.
Wise. Before we move into our last little segment, I want to know how the Confetti Bar Microjoys collaboration came to be.
Oh my goodness. Wasn't that wonderful? It's so good. Well, I mean, you've seen the book, She's a Beauty.
Yes.
When going through the cover and everything, I knew not only based on the cover itself, I knew that the topics in the book could feel weighty. And I wanted to balance them out in the same way that the cover balances them out. It talks about hope, but it also has these bright colors. And I wanted that to feel really balanced. And I wanted folks to know that this idea of holding grief in one hand and joy in the other means that, have confetti on hand, because there's going to be a moment when you need it, right? Like when you're in the midst of the shit and you just need some joy. And so I remember one of the first things I thought of was confetti. And I reached out, Jessica, I think I reached out to you, didn't I? And was like, hey, I want to do this thing. What do you think?
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, and we both know Leah
Yeah.
of formerly of Color Pop.
Yes.
And I actually spoke to Leah. I said, Leah, this is what I want to do. I want there to be a collaboration where folks are invited, because it almost made Microjoys experiential, you know, and how you were able to, I mean, it really was just a beautiful collaboration. The colors, the thought, the packaging, the kind of confetti that was used, was just so detailed and thoughtful and specific that I really felt like what we co-created / you created,
Co-created.
was really about making this book come to life, right? Like it's in this bottle that looks like it's a pill bottle and it's a dose of, and even the language that you used, you know, I think it was about making the concepts in this book come to life. And it's one of the most beautiful ways to give the book is with a little bottle of a dose of Microjoys, the confetti that was created for it. So Alexis, I answered a lot of questions. Did I leave anything out that you wanted to know about it?
I don't think so. Jessica?
Okay.
No,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it was just obviously like it was a pleasure to create, and like those are the kinds of things, you know, we've done a number of collaborations over the years, but I always particularly enjoy the ones that like really resonate just from like top to bottom, like, you know, obviously the product itself, but then also like the meaning behind it and just having it kind of mesh so well, just makes it extra special. And obviously the Sprout Fetty is definitely holds a special place in my heart because it's just so fun and just such an experience and such, you know, a fun little extra kind of thing on top of it. Like not only do you get the confetti, but then, something else magical happens. So it was just super fun. And I'm grateful that we got to work on this together.
I think we should do a holiday thing around this. Yeah. We'll talk about it. Yeah, this is not for now, but this is for like, we should do something about this, the gifting idea.
Yes. We love gifts. See,
offline.
Our love language, gift giving. We need to.
Correct. You're right. Correct.
Okay, perfect. All right. Before we wrap up here, we have our last segment that has quickly become our most favorite part of having visitors here in Confetti Land. So I hope you will indulge us. But we have dubbed this our super silly segment because we were very creative with the name. But just for fun, we're going to ask you a few more kind of like random rapid fire questions. The idea is not to think about it too much. Just kind of give us your unfiltered thoughts. But we're just going to go with it. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm so ready. Okay.
If you had to choose between having a permanent unibrow or having no eyebrows at all, which one would you choose?
No eyebrows, because I can paint them on.
Oh, there you go. That was good. If you could turn the sky any color other than blue, what would you choose?
Obviously pink.
If that wasn't your answer, I was going to be like, wait a second.
We saw that one coming, but we appreciate it because I think I would choose the same.
Yeah, honestly, I want a pink sky.
Yeah.
If you had to describe your personality using a kitchen appliance, what would it be? I don't tell Alexis these questions.
Oh my gosh.
I purposely don't tell Alexis these questions ahead of time because I like to see her real-time reactions too.
And I don't read them.
Does it have to be an appliance?
Yes, it does.
This is an appliance. Can it just be something in the kitchen?
Okay,
what
fine.
kind of appliance would I be?
A utensil?
Okay, if I would be an appliance, well, I was thinking my pink Esther glasses, like hand-blown pink wine glasses, but that's not an appliance. So if I were an appliance, I would be my bright red Vitamix. Don't ask me why. I just feel like it's fun. Okay. If I were an appliance, and I never, to be clear, I never want to be an appliance, but because I feel backed into a corner to choose an appliance, I will be a red Vitamix. Okay. It's high quality and it's got some color.
Okay. Perfect. See? And you're mixing things up. You're making people think. You're mixing up the feelings. I don't know. We could figure it out.
You never want to be an appliance again.
What does the tooth fairy do with all those teeth?
I think the tooth fairy recycles them and composts them.
Oh.
I think flowers grow out of them. I'm just telling you, that's what I think
Okay.
happens. I think they get
I hope
composted
that's what happens.
and they go back to the earth.
Nice.
I hope so.
I like it.
I don't know, that could have been creepy, but I'm not going to make it creepy. Composted. They get composted.
Final answer. Okay. Why is it called shipping if it goes by truck, but it's called cargo when it goes by ship?
Really? This is
These are the important. These are
question.
the important questions we need answers.
Hard
to.
hitters.
this is journalism right here. This is journalistic ethics is what this is. I don't know. That is a good question. That shipping and cargo. Oh, I think you just ruined my day with that one. That's going to really cause some thinking.
Oh, you don't mean to ruin your day.
You better
We're
bring it
trying to
back.
expand your
I
mind.
think I don't know. I don't know. My mind feels like it wants to break right now because I don't know the answer to that. Oh my goodness.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, okay, we'll just move on.
I forgive you.
Thank you.
How many pennies do you think would fit in your shoe?
367.
Whoa. That was
Yeah.
What kind of shoe?
367 and no, 367 pennies would fit into my Birkenstock clogs, my Boston clogs.
Okay.
If I had to
Got
guess.
it. Just a
That's
random
what I would
guess.
say.
Amazing.
367. I'm just guessing, but I'm going with it. 367.
Perfect. Do fish get thirsty?
Do I what?
Do fish get thirsty?
No. No, they don't get thirsty. That's a ridiculous question. Absolutely not. They do not get thirsty.
You never know. Do they drink the
Come
water
on.
or do they just absorb it? I don't know. I'm not a fish.
No, they just enjoy the water. No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Why is deli meat round when most bread is square?
I mean, I feel like the first part of that is a question in itself. Why is deli meat round?
You're not wrong.
I mean, I just feel like we could leave it at that. But then when you ask me about bread in comparison, it's a lot for me to take on. I mean, it's late into the evening for me. I don't know. I don't know these answers. These are not the kinds of things that I talk about in the personal leadership space. So I don't know.
Well, we're just making you be prepared. I don't know. Someone might need to know this. Okay,
Round
follow-up
deli
question.
meat and square bread.
Follow-up question then.
Okay.
Why
I'm ready.
is a burger not called a sandwich?
Because it's a burger.
But why is it not a sandwich? It's the same elements of a sandwich.
No, it's not. It's a burger.
Somehow it's
beef.
so
It's a
different.
burger.
But it's
No,
meat
it's
and
very different.
condiments and everything in between bread.
No, it's not. It's not squashed meat that's turned into a round log, like sandwich stuff is. I don't know.
Okay.
These are questions that I don't know the answer of on this evening. This is a lot for my
Okay,
brain.
well, think about
This
it.
is a lot.
Think about it. We only have
There's
two.
no,
We have
no
two more.
journalistic integrity here.
We have
All right,
two
I'm
more.
ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Which side of the armrest is really yours at a movie theater?
Both, if you sit in the middle.
Claim them both.
It's the same on planes. Whoever the person is on the middle, I think it is probably to your left,
Okay.
truthfully.
Okay.
But maybe it's to your right. Or it's both.
Whichever you feel.
Just depends.
And
And
left and right.
And exactly. It's whatever you want. You can have all of them if you want.
Just lay across them. It's a footrest now.
Good question. Correct. It's from my
Okay.
head. Yeah.
All right, last one. Which orange came first, the color or the fruit?
The color.
And then they named the fruit.
The
after
color
the
came
color.
first, and then the fruit happened, and they were like, that's orange. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, all
The
right.
color came first.
I like the confidence.
Without question.
I
color
like the
came
I
first.
do
confidence
too.
of that.
Yeah, 100%.
That was good. Wow. Well, thank you so much for not only indulging in our silly questions, but also for talking to us about microjoys and all of the things. It's been so much fun having you here in Confetti Land. Last two questions is, what is your best advice for somebody looking to begin the practice of finding microjoys?
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Build a practice of paying attention every single day. When you're walking outside, when you're sitting in your home, consciously take note of what's around you.
So good.
And then write it down. Then write it down in your
Yes.
notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And write it down in your notes app or in your journal.
Yes, so good. Well, we know that our confetti community is going to want to be able to find you. So where and how can our confetti people connect with you?
Confetti people only are welcome to connect with me on social media at Cyndie Spiegel. If they are not confetti people, I'm not interested. But confetti people at Cyndie Spiegel on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and also my website. But remember, that's only for confetti people.
Yes.
Got the right crowd here.
Yes.
Okay. As our final send-off, it is finally time for our confetti.
My husband's going to lose it. Okay.
Listen, it's messy and it's beautiful, okay?
Oh my gosh.
All right.
I can't think of another person that I would agree to do this for. Just so we're clear. In my house.
We feel very honored.
Gonna like it.
No, I'm sitting in my dining room because I'm going to try and do this as neat as possible.
Okay, good luck with that.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to give us a count of three.
Pull down?
Count of three, and then we're going to, like a volleyball, kind of. All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. 1,
yes.
2, 3.
Yay! That was so good. I didn't get any in my hair.
It just makes me so happy.
That was pretty good.
That was good.
You can't see it, but it's all over my table.
That's good.
It's everywhere.
Oh, and
yes.
do you see this? Yeah, and hold, please.
I usually get some in my water.
Everywhere.
Oh, you got. Well, I moved the open glass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and this looks amazing. I may have to take a picture and send
Microjoys all around.
Microjoy. I got to take a picture of this. I got to take a picture of this ridiculousness. It's so good. Okay, I got a picture.
Okay, perfect.
So good.
Well,
so
thank
good.
you again for
this
joining us. We can't wait to share this with our confetti community, and we hope this isn't the last time you visit Confetti Land.
Yes.
Ditto. Thank you all so much for your patience, and thank you for inviting me on. It's been a real treat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
You have arrived at Confetti Land Central Station. Please exit the subway and watch your step.
For more fun, join us on the socials at the Confetti Bar. To receive free inspiration delivered to your inbox, you can also join the Confetti Club at theconfettibar.com/join. Thanks for visiting!
That is my cat. I apologize.